Greetings. Today is a fantastic day because I have my friend in the studio. Before I introduce you to my friend, I would like to talk about a few things. A few weeks back, we were having a conversation about challenges in life. And in that context, we were also talking about failures and how to overcome failures. She asked me a very, very profound question. And this question is, where do failures come from? And as a follow up to that, she was talking about expectations and unrealistic expectations people have, and which is the root cause of failures. And as the conversation progressed, we also talked about entrepreneurship, we also talked about social commitment. And here today, I'm so very lucky to have this friend in the studio who has immense social commitment and social concern and a very, very profound dimension towards failures, expectations, all these things. This conversation, at least a major portion of this conversation, will be focused on where did she get this social commitment from, right? What drives her? All these things. So, with that in background, I invite you, Dr. Chandrika, to this podcast. Thank you so much for taking out the time and coming here. Um, we'll talk about your life, your childhood, what shaped you to what you have become. I'm very sure you have a very fulfilling professional life. In having this fulfilled professional life, where do you get this drive to have the social commitment? People, we talk about social concern. A lot of us talk about social concern, but converting that concern into a commitment is very, very rare. So, what drives you? Where did you get this commitment?
Thanks, SK, for inviting me to this interesting podcast. So, when I asked you what it is about, you told it's all about mindset. So, I hope I'll be value adding to whatever questions you asked me in this podcast. I am Dr. Chandrika Anand. I'm a gynecologist and in Bangalore, having a private practice since almost 30 years, you can say. So, this social concern and commitment and empathy, I think it's almost genetic to a major extent. You know, and also what you see in your childhood. So, what happened was that we see our parents, observe them 24/7. See, what they talk is different, what they do is different. Okay. So, I remember being the last child of my parents. The age gap was too much. So, my mom was 32 years when my father was 40 years when I was born. So in my childhood, I see them, daily basis, they are very kind to people around them. Like, my father he was an auditor. His name is Gundu Rao. He's an auditor in Tumkur. He would talk very nicely to people like vegetable vendors or, people who sell small things, housemaids, house helpers, and people who are, there were some mentally challenged people in and around our road. Everyone used to make fun of him. But this man would give his clothes, and one fellow asked him for a new umbrella. Actually, that everyone would call him mad. In that context, mental health was not a major thing. So all the children would call him Kucha Banda, that kind of thing. And he asked, "I want your umbrella." So my father simply gave an umbrella. So my mother would ask, "Why are you giving such a new one? You could have given an old one." So he says, "No, no, who will give him? We can always get a new one, but who will give him?" And being kind to ordinary people, and they come in the afternoon, these vegetable vendor ladies from the nearby villages. So he will help them to, they carry all the vegetables on a booty, right, on a basket on their head. So he'll help them. We'll give them water to drink and then ask about her family, her husband. We need not do all that, right? So you observe, and also they would give, for students, he would help a lot by giving money and fees and giving them food. So every week, every Thursday, one boy used to come and have food. Every Friday, one boy will come. And we were all excited about it. Like, we were never made to feel that, because there is called Vara Nanta. When there were very poor students. So they will go have food one day in one household. Weekly, one day fixed. Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like there were so many people coming to our house, and we were never made to feel that they are poor, they can't afford, they're coming only to have food and that. So basically we used to treat them with so much excitement. So today one boy is coming, okay, we'll give him this, that. So the children were excited to serve him because, and all of them have become very good, great people, and they've come back and thanked my parents. So I think most of the empathy and social concern comes from observing your parents and of course your school and your teachers.
And when you said observing, um, it looks like they had a lot of empathy to the society and the people around
Yes.
them. And what is your what is your take on converting compassion to a social commitment? So is compassion really required to have a social commitment, or how does it?
See, for a social commitment to happen, see, I believe in action, just talking a lot about things and not really doing and telling myself that I'm very compassionate, I'm very empathetic, and I want to serve people. That doesn't stop there. So there has to be an action plan for that. So to actually go help us, suppose we'll take an example of a school. We want the children of that village to go to a school. So not everyone can go teach. Like, I want to teach. I mean, I can't go teach every day. I have a busy practice here. Not everyone can go build the building. Not everyone can fund the books. So you need not exactly have the time or the energy to do it. Just the thought of helping others is enough. So there are these key persons, who are really committed. So they are the ones who will attract similar persons.
Oh, okay.
Okay, suppose you want to start a school, then you come to me, then I'll tell, okay, now SK, we'll do this, this, this. Then we'll go to one more person who we know that he is also equally empathetic. Then we'll ask for funds. One more person will go to a printer, will ask for books. So like that, it is a cohesion. There is like-minded people getting the act together by some energy. So social commitment, and all the time we need not be physically there. Because it is time consuming. Time is resource, right? So we can't be giving our time to everything all the time. So there are people with different thoughts, recognizing them, putting them together and driving it. I think that is how we can convert the compassion or empathy to a commitment. Actionable.
You also talked about building a plan. What goes into building a fantastic plan which serves your commitment?
You mean to say a social commitment?
Yes.
So one thing is, now there are we have this health education, we have a lot of topics. So we are used to, in medicines, we are used to making plans properly, how to make it effective.
Okay.
So basically we need to identify our problem or identify what we exactly we need to address. For example, I'm very deeply concerned about a condition called PCOS. It's called polycystic ovarian syndrome. 30 years back when I was doing my MD, it was just a theory question. They'll ask a question and we answer it because we hardly saw any patients like that.
Okay.
Now, decade by decade, it is changing so much. Every day I'm getting 5 patients with PCOS in my clinic. This PCOS is a condition where the young girls and the women become like men. The testosterone hormone increases and the estrogen hormone also increases. So they start growing hair on the face and they become fat and they become diabetic. They have difficulty in having children. And then eventually they are at risk of cancer. So it's a huge problem. It's become now as big as diabetes and hypertension.
Oh.
See, the commonest disease in the human body is hypertension. Okay, almost around 14 to 15% of the population has hypertension. Around 10% have diabetes, 10% have thyroid. Now this PCOS is beating all of them. It is now 10 to 15%.
Oh.
So how do I educate people? Now it is preventable. It is because of a bad lifestyle. I'm just giving an example how I.
Sure. Yeah.
So now it is mainly lifestyle based. All of us know that, we are having a bad lifestyle. We are eating a lot of junk food, untimely sleep. We're not sleeping well. And there are a lot of these environmental toxins. We are using too much of cosmetics, too much of perfumes, and we are exposed to air pollution, dust pollution. And then we are using all plastics more and Teflon coating, all those things. So our cooking style, lifestyle has changed. Along with that, there is this hormonal imbalance. So these are all preventable. So weight loss of 5 to 10% can control PCOS. Simple. The bottom line is, you are 100 kgs, lose 10 kgs, you will be all right. So who will drive this home? And because now, for me, the population, imagine 10% of women in India are suffering from this. Can I address alone? I can see 5 people, 10 people. I go to a lot of schools and colleges. I've addressed more than around 5,000 students. How much more can I address? So for me to go to a college, I have to go make a schedule, fix an appointment, talk to them. Everything is an energy, right? And I'm working. So that is why social media came to place. Social media, now I started a channel of my own, handle of my own,
Oh.
just to educate about PCOS. Then I asked my youngsters, I told you RJ Saujanya, she's a very good friend of mine and my patient, she's like a daughter to me. I asked how to reach to maximum number of people to create awareness. If I write an article, people won't read. Nowadays, people are not reading newspapers. And then if I give lectures, I can give to only a minimum 1,000. So these girls told nowadays, the only thing which is trending the youth is Insta. So Instagram, and YouTube for older women, Facebook for older women. So I started this channel 2.5 years back. I'm spending around 40,000-50,000 per month to this channel. And then we make around 30-40 videos on PCOS.
Wow.
Is around 10 to 15 minutes. See, a patient comes to me in front of me. I can't talk to her for 3 hours. It's impossible. I can't address everything. So I made around 30-40 videos of PCOS. It is there on all the podcast platforms. It's in YouTube and Facebook and everywhere. Only to make them aware.
Okay.
Now, if it reaches, at least it will reach, Insta will reach even the rural area. And I'm speaking in Kannada, in a local language. Very, very important. When we need to connect to them. English, international, there are a lot of platforms. So I'm speaking in Kannada. So it is reaching a lot of people. I hope that it will help a lot of people. So that is how I feel. You need time, you need money, you need a commitment to make anything actionable. So for us, for any social commitment, now I feel, listen, my last month video views were around 3 lakhs. So now I'm more hungry. 3 lakhs is not enough. So I went and met Art of Living Ashram. I went and met Guruji, Ravi Shankar Guruji I met. I took a printout, colorful printout about this PCOS. 1 minute darshan, I just told him, sir, Guruji, I have this. There is this problem and I want to help. Immediately he connected me with his assistant. He is an MBA from Columbia, Vikramji. He immediately took my photo and my phone number. After 1 day, the phone call came. He connected me with the other modules of AOL. Now I am working with them. Together we are creating modules. There is a group, enthusiastic group, who are equally enthusiastic to reach out to young girls. And they make it more interesting. They can go to villages and they can make drama, skit, songs, music, and then teach them about PCOS, which I can't do.
Okay.
So now I am teaming with them. We are preparing module. I'm the resource person. So I feel maybe organization like AOL, which has got millions and billions of followers all over the world. This is a problem of the world. It's not only about India. So somehow I feel very deeply satisfied that the girls are helped, the disease burden comes down, and that is how I can help the humanity.
So there are two things which stand out in this conversation about when we talk about plan. You really need to understand what is the problem statement and what is it that you want to do with this problem statement.
Yes.
And then you need to look for ways to reach to people and how to address this. So how did this out of box thinking of reaching to AOL come to you?
See, as I told you, I made a social media handle. I have around 7,000 followers and it will reach 2 lakhs of people. Then I tried contacting movie stars, okay, who are sometimes my patients, to talk about, just drop a word about PCOS and just something. So it will reach to many people. Unfortunately, or fortunately or unfortunately, movie stars are the most followed people, other than sports persons, okay, on social media all over the world. And no one does it free. So, so I tried, they show interest, but then when you reach out, they're busy. So it has to be paid. I don't like the idea because it's a social commitment.
Yeah.
So I went to a lot of producers. I asked them, you are earning so much out of a movie. Why don't you address this cost? Take up a CSR activity and do it. Everyone is not really, empathetic about it. It's okay. It's their choice. So that is why then I was looking like a pan-India or pan-international brand. Of our own brand is AOL. I have been to AOL. I have done Sudarshana Kriya. We have done that.
Okay.
The way they are working for humanity, the way they are committed to help people is too much. So we will want someone like, we are just a drop in the ocean, what Guruji is doing. So I thought we should approach.
Fantastic. We will come back to your entrepreneurial adventures. But before that, we will look at your childhood. Where do you come from? Which school did you go to? Do you have any specific memories of your childhood which would have had an impact on what you are doing now? If you could talk about your childhood,
Yeah.
probably it will be.
Yeah, sure. See, I don't know. I've been very blessed that I have a very good, fantastic childhood in Tumkur. I was the last child of my parents, and there were two brothers and two sisters. And because there was an age gap, they took care of me very well. I was like very pampered by all of them. And I went to this beautiful school called Vidyaniketan School. You are my senior there, 1 year senior there. SK is my senior there. And I'm like a sponge who will absorb all the positivity around me. Maybe I think that's the reason I'm so excited about my school, excited about my college, whether it is Sarvodaya College and Kasturba Medical College and Bangalore Medical College. Wherever you ask, I'm still in touch with my LKG teachers. LKG teachers, high school teachers, college teachers, MBBS teachers. If you ask me, are they so good? Why are you jumping about them? But I feel everyone will contribute to you, whatever you are, as long as you take it.
Yep.
As long as you take it. Let us not be very critical about our teachers. See, obviously our primary school English teacher, and now I'm a gynecologist, we could be different. But then what she taught so passionately, taught about a poem or a story, that could have really, helped me so much. So, I feel it's a total environment of safe environment. We are a very safe we were never unsafe in Tumkur in those eras. So, Vidyaniketan was a beautiful school.
You talked about being a sponge which will absorb everything. How do you prepare yourself? What should be the mindset of a person to get to that level of acceptance, absorbing? How do you prepare yourself?
See, one thing, sometimes it is a personality. Some people are always cribbing wherever you go, what difference that person made, why are you? And they are like that. Some people are all the time raving about all the good things. As soon as I entered this studio, I really loved the house. I loved the energy. I loved the Krishna, the way the paintings. There are so many good things to look at.
Yes.
At the same time, you can start looking at the roof, some bad painting or some, some books which are torn. There are a lot of bad things also. So it all depends on what you want to be. You can choose. Now I think I'm 55 years and I have learned to choose every thought of mine.
Okay.
And it's a choice. I feel it's a choice. Being happy is a choice. Being cribby is a choice. Being hardworking is a choice. And being positive is a choice.
Irrespective of your surroundings?
Yeah, see, surroundings also you can choose. Surroundings also you can choose.
That's very interesting. Could you talk about it?
Yeah, absolutely. See, in the sense like, there are some persons in your life which you can't change, like your parents, your brothers and sisters, you can't change. And unfortunately, some people will have a bad experience with their parents. They are fighting parents, having disharmony, husband and father and mother having bad relationship. But still you can pick up how not to be with your husband or wife later.
Okay.
You can always learn from others' mistakes too. You need not be a copy of them and repeat the same mistake. And your brothers and sisters, there is a lot of this sibling rivalry everywhere. How much ever you give, whatever you give, there is always thing that, I didn't get more. But I feel all brothers and sisters are the same. There is blood is thicker than water. So you need to take care of them. You need to take care of your parents. I feel this is a total basic thought. I'm going total basic. That's why I feel, see, you are born on this earth, right? You have a commitment. So the moment you are born, I deliver babies every day. So the moment the baby comes out, it has got a commitment. You are a child to someone, you are a brother to someone, you are a sister to someone, you are a student, and then you become a doctor, you become someone's wife and a mother. There are these set roles. And our society, particularly the Indian society, Hindu society, over centuries, they have set rules. How have they set rules? Because they might have made hundreds and thousands of mistakes, and then they have set the rules. They have learned from that, and they have set the rules. So going by what elders say and, generally following the trend helps a lot.
Okay.
To be honest. So, because they have done that, they have set the rules. Now, defying every rule has become a fashion now. Defying everything. Why should I stay with my parents? Why should I listen to you? Why should I this? For everything, there is a why. But then I see a lot of these adolescents who come to my clinic who are defiant about most of the things. If I say vegetables, why should I eat vegetables? I don't like vegetables. I'll take iron tablet. So for everything there's a defiance. But unfortunately, they are not happy. On a basic level, how much are they defying their parents and society and trying out a lot of new things? Internally, they are not happy. Like, sitting there on the other side of table, I can make out if they are happy or stressed or sad. And I ask them, you are doing everything what you want, but why are you still depressed? They don't have an answer. So I'm not telling that, you be very conservative and follow everything. So that is how you are born with a commitment. So I feel I should earn my role. I should earn my food. Either you work outside or you work at home. Housewives scribble a lot that they are working at home. There is no identity. But then you are getting food every day. I go that basic.
Okay.
You're getting food every day. For the men to go out, I go and address a lot of this Women's Day, International Women's Day celebration. So I tell these women, don't think your husbands go in the morning and come back and they're having fun and chatting and, enjoying their lives. Every day is a fight.
Yeah.
To earn money is a fight. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely agree.
Even for men, how do you feel going out? It is a huge stress on them to go earn, take care of the wife and her needs and family and children, education. You need to plan so much, particularly with the financial uncertainties of this world. Don't you feel the burden is too much on the man alone in case if he's a single earner?
Absolutely, yes. Food, the very thought of putting the food on the table for the family, of course, you do it with pleasure, you do it with a lot of love, but to make that happen in a practical sense is you need to earn money, you need to earn something. That is really, at times it becomes very stressful.
Yes. So that's why, I feel, the housewife feel very upset. They don't have an identity. Identity comes with money. The more you earn, the stronger is identity. That is how our society has, labeled like that. You get more respect. He is earning. We let him do whatever he wants. So that has to be broken. That has to be broken. The person who earns the most need not be the most important person in the family.
Oh, okay. That's fair.
Right. In the sense, the mother has got an equally important role. For me, my father and my mother are equally important. Just because my father was double graduate and he earned more, didn't make my mother less. She taught me the life lessons. So that kind of clarity we had when we were children. But now there is a lot of disturbance. I don't know. I think someone has to do something about it.
There are a couple of things which came out of this particular portion of the conversation. One is being different for the sake of being different would not serve the purpose, right? That is one takeaway for especially the kids of today. Second thing is, as a breadwinner of the family, it is just a role, right? And teaching values and getting your kid doing the homework is a role.
Absolutely.
Right? Which are equally important. There is,
yes, absolutely.
Right? So these are the two major takeaways. So just because I earn and bring money to the family does not make me big, or somebody coaching their kids, helping them do homework is not lesser.
At all.
At all.
At all.
Right. Okay. With these two things, can you, you talked about acceptance, right? How do you prepare? In one of my earlier podcasts also, I was asking my guest, how do you prepare yourself to accept things as they are, right? Any insights that you can provide? What have you told yourselves before accepting something or developing?
Absolutely. So I feel there are two aspects. One is I remember my mother, when I was a kid, always whenever there was a comparison. So they used to tell, don't compare with anyone.
Okay.
And then she would tell, if you really want to compare, that you have very less, then you compare with person who is more knowledgeable than him. Okay. So always compare with ನಿನಗಿನ ತುಂಬಾ ಬುದ್ಧಿವಂತರನ್ನ ನೋಡಿ ನಾನು ಅವ್ರ ತರ ಆಗ್ಬೇಕು, ಅವರಷ್ಟು ನನಗೆ ಇಲ್ವಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಜ್ಞಾನ ಮಾತ್ರ. Just everything materialistic things, you compare with people who have lesser than you. ಈಗ ಒಂದು ಬಟ್ಟೆ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಒಂದು ಬುಕ್ಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಒಂದು ಇದಿಲ್ಲ, ನೋಡೋ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಅದೂ ಇಲ್ಲ. I think that is a total basic thing. So that is one thing which will give you a day-to-day check. Every day when you check yourself, I feel gratitude. Gratitude for whatever we have. The fact that we are sitting here in Bangalore under a roof and talking all this is a major advantage compared to a war-struck place or a very poor drought-struck place or an earthquake where people are dying. Aren't we blessed?
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
Absolutely, yes.
In the same context, yesterday, 2 days back, there was a 28-year-old in Fortis Hospital. One boy he had a road traffic accident. Alcohol, drunken driving, he hit a divider. Got into the hospital, brain dead. That means he can never be normal. His brain is stopped functioning. But heart, lung, kidneys, everything is intact. So keep him like that only. He will survive for many years till he develops some infection or whatever and dies on the bed. So, but then the parents and the doctors spoke to the parents. The parents eventually, after 2-3 days, they agreed to donate his organs.
Oh.
So his heart was donated, lungs were donated, liver, 2 kidneys. It was all donated. They removed all the vital organs and it was given to a lot of well-deserving, unhealthy people. So when I got into OT to deliver one child, imagine, one life is going, one new life is coming. It's a plus and minus situation. Imagine the emotional roller coaster, what we go through every day. And my son also is 28 years. I felt really sad. After they remove everything, they declare death. It was very, very, very sad. I was wondering what's happening, Imagine the plight of the parents. They lost a child. Then I thought maybe this boy's purpose was to die like this and help some 10 people. So he has saved 10 lives. Maybe that is his karma. Whatever you have done, so you're going to live like this. He was an engineer working here. So did all these things. And eventually when he went, he saved more than 10 people.
Okay.
I mean, that is a very, again, I go back to my mother who is to tell something bad happens. So she'll simply tell you, oh, bido, you didn't deserve this. Irli bido, ad ninge irliಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ. Something like, even a small thing like a food, ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲ, ಇರ್ಲಿ ಬಿಡು ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ, next time ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಆಯ್ತು, kinds. And then you don't get a seat somewhere. ಇರ್ಲಿ ಬಿಡೋದು, ನೀನೇ ಇಲ್ಲ, ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಯಾರೋ ಹರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. then she'll tell, ಇಲ್ಲ, ನೀನ್ ಯಾರಿಗೋ ಹರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ಯಾ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ previous janma, so it is come back to you. It's okay, go through it. So that concept of karma and concept of gratitude. So when I can't complain about my son that ಸರಿ ಮಾತಾಡಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅದು ಇದು when compared to these parents who are crying. So aren't I better in position? So every morning when I get up with a lot of gratitude. Lots of gratitude just to be alive. I see a lot of women 30-40 years with cancers. Thank God I'm fine. Thank God I don't have this. So that kind of daily basis gratitude will keep you grounded. Instead of telling, oh, I'm a famous gynecologist, I'm a top gynecologist, I deserve this, as soon as I come, you have to get up and wish me. There are kind of expectations we try to set because of the self-importance given.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel very important. That is why I expect you, SK, as soon as I come, you need to do this. And now you have to get me water, you have to get me this. Then if you don't do this, that is when I get disappointed. So that expectations are self-set from a person or a institution or an individual or a group. And if that doesn't happen, you feel disappointed. Then you feel hurt.
Yeah.
So when you yourself are grounded, when you yourself know you are important, I'm a gynecologist because I was born to my parents. And then they put me to a good school. I worked hard. What if I was born in a rural area or to a very poor parents or illiterate parents? They wouldn't have put me to school. Then I don't know what I would have been. It's a basic thing, I feel.
Doctor, you are talking about karma, expectations, all these things. There is a saying that who hurt you more? None other than my expectations, right? It is my own expectations which hurt me the most. And how do you relate these two concepts of karma and expectation? Because even few weeks back when we were having a conversation, this word expectations came out very powerfully. So uh, are you suggesting that we should live without any expectations at all? Or what is it that you mean when you talk about expectations? And
See, we live in a society, we interact with so many people, like, immediately family, husband, children, people who work for me, my colleagues, my driver, everyone, and interaction with everyone. We are duty bound. I feel, as I told you, we are duty bound. I need to do this. As a doctor, I need to do these things. I need to update, I need to talk to them, I need to listen to them, I need to do by my duty.
sure.
So expecting others to do their duties is definitely important. Like say, we going with zero expectations is very difficult.
Yeah.
Then you will burden yourself with more work. So there are the set roles. Okay, my husband, my expectation from him is this much. My children, it is this much. My workers, it is this much. My patient, it is this much. So give your best. Most often, whatever it comes to you, we need to take it.
Okay.
And what I realize is, particularly when it comes to interpersonal relationships, I have evolved every decade. 10 to 20 years is different me, 20 to 30 is me, 20 to 30 to 40 is different, 40 to 50 is different. And definitely, I'm not telling I'm a saint with zero expectations. I have had expectations. I got disappointed, I cried and felt very hurtful. But then the way you make peace with yourself and with the people around you is lowering your expectations, or keep it to basic expectations, in every aspect of life, and do your duty. So most often, whatever you get will be positive one. When we expect too much out of a system, it doesn't come. You get disappointed. At the same time, how much are you giving to the system?
Yeah.
Even they are having expectations from you, right? How are you performing? Decade by decade, how are you performing? Are we doing the same? We are getting older. Do I have the same energy? Can I do the same things like before? All those things we need to ask. Suppose before I ask a favor from you, I should ask, what have I done to you? Some people are chronic takers. They always take, everything they help. You call them up, why you didn't call, they're complaining. But they are never happy. Takers are never happy. Givers are always happy. You go on giving, you give to 10 people. Only 3 will give you back. 3, 4 people will take it and run away. They'll never come back to you. But then I have observed, it's my true experience, is that you go give on positive things, good things. Good things can be your time or your advice or your energy, or you give money or you give clothes, whatever. You give good things around you, good things come back to you.
Okay.
Maybe not from the same source, from a different source, 100% it will come back to you.
Okay. When you set out to do something, you plan what needs to be done. Would you also give equal importance to the goal that you would achieve by planning these things, and how attached are you to the goals?
We should not be very attached to the goals. It is a journey, because we keep modifying. See, suppose now there is, I want to, right now my mission is, I want to create awareness about PCOS in India. Think that is my right now goal. I can't stop talking about it because it's a burning issue. So when I started out with making booklets and printouts and giving to students. Now see, look at the journey. It has gone till AOL. It has gone till very, very soon it will go till government. There is nothing personal attached there. Like I don't want to be a crusader of PCOS and I want an award or something. The more we attach to the goal and what we get out of it, that has to be very clear. If I want everything about the goal or everything, then it becomes a little hurtful because you may not get.
Okay.
So the intention has to be very, very clear.
So if you get attached to the goal, it becomes a burden.
Right? Sometimes, and it may not be the best goal also. Okay. You'll miss out the good ones. Okay. Because as you are evolving, the end point may change. You may become much better. So any last chance, I don't crib. Okay. So if suppose now imagine there are some 2-3 hospitals who are approaching me for me to work there or something, and and it is very attractive. And then, it's very tempting. Either the condition or the money or the fame or whatever, the brand. Then things will move and then we have negotiations and it doesn't work out.
Okay.
For 24 hours, I'll be unhappy. Anything can upset me only for 24 hours.
Okay.
After that, next morning, I'm there. Okay, now fine. This didn't happen. Maybe God has got better for me. Drop it. I'm like that. I mean, I'm very, very clear about what upsets me. So when I'm upset, I will know.
And how much duration you can be upset?
24 hours.
24 hours.
Yes.
Yeah. So you need to set a timeline for
Yes.
how long can you be upset.
I clearly, it's a very extremely logical type of emotional control I have. If, for example, at the end of the night, I will keep moving with a routine. Suddenly, I know something is bothering me. My inner mind will tell you are not happy. Why? Is it because of this? Either your son didn't score marks, or you didn't get good money, or you missed the trip. That kind of. I'll make a list, mental list. What is upsetting you? So I will know in 5 minutes what is upsetting me. Then next algorithm opens. Is it in your hands or not in your hands?
Okay.
It is not in your hands, drop. You can't do anything about it. If it is in your hands, next work, next algorithm. What to do to improve it? I work like that, SK.
Do you practice it every day?
Every day.
Every single day?
Yes.
Wow.
The moment, because when you came and asked me, what are your failures? You need to, where you are extremely upset and what are your failures? I really had to think, what are my failures? I don't remember. Because I would call it as a setback. I wouldn't call it as a failure. A failure will be a thing which I don't do that. It's a failure. For
Not
example,
attempting to do something is a
yeah, not attempting. In the sense, there is something which is correctable. Like, I know smoking is bad. I know smoking causes cancer and heart attack. I still smoke. That's a failure.
Okay.
You understand? Suppose you are you are supposed to catch a train and then you didn't plan well and you go late. That's a failure on your part. Those are my failures.
Okay.
Not like something like, something happened in the market and then you lost a job. That's not your failure. That's a system failure. It's a setback. A setback will let you know how to do it better next time.
Oh, this is a very, very important distinction. This pulls back the responsibility on your own self for the failures, and it liberates you. It liberates you when you did not contribute to.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right?
See, in an interpersonal
very
relationship,
important
see, there is a husband and wife. One person really troubles the other one. The behavior is really different. And particularly divorces, sexual assaults. People think that there is a onus. If there is a miscarriage, suppose the women, 2 months they are pregnant, they're very happy, whole family comes. And then we see the baby heartbeat has stopped. Immediate, what do they think first? What did I do to do that? Did I sleep well? Did I sleep in a wrong position? Or you shouldn't have taken coffee. You shouldn't have gone in the bike. We try to attach that particular negative incident to our own actions and feel guilty about it.
Okay.
So I tell my patients first, because now she's going to get bombarded. She's going through physical pain of an abortion and the psychological pain of losing a child, plus the psychological burden of the parents and family.
Yeah.
Everyone talking 100 things. Why this happened? So I tell these girls, first thing I counsel, see, man, this is not your fault. Unless you start drinking every day, or you are smoking every day, or you are doing some kind of a crazy activity which led to the bleeding. First, you stop that. So the moment we stop that taking onus of the negative incident, a negative outcome on ourselves, I will know what mistake I have done in a relationship. Can I correct it? If I have not done any mistake, if I am normal, the other person is behaving badly, why are we taking that as our failure?
Yeah.
It's a system failure. It's a setback on the other person. So we are in the society are made to feel that you go through a divorce, you go through a miscarriage, or you go through a breakup or whatever, the whole problem lies with you. We are made to think, what happened? What did I do? We know what we have done. If I have contributed for the divorce or for the abortion or for my health, then I'm responsible. So taking responsibility for whatever you are feeling or whatever your actions is extremely important. It's like segregating thoughts. Very, very important. We give too much importance to what we feel. I feel sad. It doesn't mean that I'm contributing to it.
Okay. Oh, let us come back to your social commitment, especially related to PCOS. I know that you're starting a company to address this in a very methodical and logical. How did that thought come about, and what have you done so far in relation to building this company, building this organization?
Yeah, see, basically this PCOS, as I told you, no one knows why it is coming so much in nowadays in recent decade. All over the world, there is lots of thousands of research going on. We don't know why some girls are suffering, some are not. Okay, the girls become diabetic, hypertensive. There is a lot of mental health issues, depression, anxiety, and then infertility, cancers, heavy bleeding, all those things. So this needs to be addressed by an integrated approach is what we say.
Okay.
That is, they come with this unwanted hair on the face or pimples. So they go to a skin doctor. So a girl, imagine an adolescent girl of 18 years or 19 years. She comes with pimples. Then I sit and tell her, see, you got PCOS, you're going to have diabetes, you're going to have infertility. She'll run away from me. Her issue is different. So because this is a very diverse, complex issue, it needs to be addressed by a gynec, by a physician, by a dermatologist, psychiatrist, psychology, and nutrition, and then endocrinologist if necessary. And I realized that nowhere in the world, all these people are together addressing it.
Okay.
Initially, what we think, immediately we look up to America. Now, what are they doing? Then I searched all over. There are clinics with an endocrinologist and a gynecologist. There are clinics with a psychiatrist. But nowhere all the people under one roof, I'm very proud to say it is in my center.
Oh.
We have a PCOS center in Agarbavi. I have done the data of around 1,000, 1,500 people where I take a lot of time to assess all these things. So telling a patient just give treatment for pimples is not enough. Give treatment for hair loss is not enough. Getting them pregnant is not enough. We need to address everything. And this takes a lot of methodology. It takes a lot of in-depth commitment. There is no money here, right? In the sense, when they come and sit with me for irregular cycles, I can't charge them 20, 30,000 for that. It's not an operation. So it takes a lot of knowledge. It takes a lot of expertise. So that is when I was talking to my physiotherapist. He told, Madam, why don't we start a PCOS clinic? When there are so many girls suffering from that. So that is when we started in 2020. During COVID, we started. Okay. And now every day I get around 4, 5, 6 patients. I think that kind of volume in India, nowhere in India it is that.
Okay.
I'm proud to say now, I can say that now because I am in the PCOS Society Managing Committee. I am in the endocrine committee of FOXY, that is a national body of gynecologists. And I'm doing research, I'm collaborated with medical colleges. We are doing research. So in that context, I feel I've really learned a lot about PCOS. There is a lot to learn too. So in that context, I need to make this available for the patients who are suffering. On and off, they are taking treatment. They're not getting the right kind of treatment anywhere. So this is why this online platform thing came. Offline, we are already doing in my clinic. Okay. Online thing to reach out to more people other than Bangalore. That idea came. That is when now the moment my associates, they're very enthusiastic to help out to people. That is why we thought we'll start a company website, online company health app, and healthcare, basically to give them a jump start. All of us, there is all the modalities. All of us will treat the patient 1 month and then leave her to the society. Then she'll be on her own. Make her responsible. Make her aware about her problems. So that will have a sustainable or a sustained treatment or an improvement for many years to come.
Okay. What is the name of your company?
My company name is called Sakriya.
Okay.
Sakriya Health. Sakriya means what? It's a being proactive. Kriya is work. Sakriya is something good work. Being proactive. So it's a noun and a verb too.
When will this company be launched, and when will they be able to avail the services?
Very soon. Maybe I'm just waiting for Yugadi. So maybe from May 2025, we should be able to help out. Because see, now here, we are reaching out to people who have not met. There is an online health platform, right? So I need to be very careful, very cautious because we need to give the best. So
Yep.
we are doing a lot of homework on that. And I think it will take May, June, I think. Yeah.
And congratulations and all the very best to you.
Thank you so much. I need your help too.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
You have a very humongous task ahead of you. And one great thing about it, about your approach is you know that you cannot serve the entire world and you will not be the only person to do that. With all those things in mind and with all the other virtues that we talked about, expectations, so karma, compassion, in 5 years from now, where would you look at this organization going? Sakriya.
See, now there are so many health online health platforms. The intention for any act is very important. In the sense, for example, why am I doing it? Am I doing it to make money, or am I doing it to make become famous, or to get an award, or to get some venture capitalists, make them to invest and siphon some money, or that is my intention to do that has to be very clearly defined.
Okay.
So that is when the expectations and the disappointments and all the things can be expected. Now we are doing this Sakriya. I have my partner called Rakshak Anand. He is a MS engineering from Australia. He has got a very deep concern about preventive health care. His father is a general surgeon, Dr. Anand Kumar. We are very good friends. And he expressed that, he's got a very good deep concern about, preventive health and yoga and exercise and eating the good food. And he wants to help the community, but doesn't know how because he's not a doctor. I don't know why we clicked, we are generations apart, but I don't know why we clicked. He is 28 and I'm 55. So maybe I think he is half my age, right? Literally. So I wanted someone with an energy to deliver. The resource and the plan is mine. I can't deliver like him. He can deliver. He can't think like me, or he can't have the experience in healthcare like me. So that is why I think we gelled very well. And the initial project is a Sakriya Healthcare on PCOS, where we want to reach out to women who have tried everything in PCOS, got frustrated and coming back to square one, or who have got suffering from very severe PCOS, like, lot of morbidities like depression, anxiety, eating disorders, or BP, sugar, insulin resistance. So we want to help them. And I think, I'm sure it will be very good because here we are not taking any funding from anyone.
Okay.
Like, we are not pumping any crores of rupees to run this. It is run with our money, with my experience and his commitment. So I'm sure it will work out monetarily. And once we know that we are going to reach out and help a lot of people, we are not going to really, catch some celebrity and make them speak about it. No, no shortcut. 55 years, there's been no shortcut, man. What shortcut now? Do I need to earn more money because of that? No. So once this Sakriya PCOS becomes a well-established healthcare, and I want to really get into cancer care. That is Sakriya Cancer Care, where a person is diagnosed with cancer. He will be taking treatment, either an operation or a chemotherapy or a radiotherapy. We need to tell them how to live. So there will be a similar holistic approach of a oncosurgeon. One very good friend is there, Dr. Sujay Hegde from Ruby Hall Clinic, Pune. He is interested to help out people because everyone will come and ask what food to give, how much to sleep, can he have bath, that kind of questions, basic questions, because a cancer can really destroy a family still. In India, people feel very devastated when someone has got a cancer. So we want to normalize that. We want to make them to lead a normal life, near to normal life, with their whatever cancer treatment they are taking. So we want to train the family and the person how to face the different situations or setbacks. There will be a psychological counseling, there will be a nutritionist, there will be a counselor, and there will be a oncosurgeon as an expert. So we want to, and a movement coach, how much, they can't be bedridden, so they need to move. So how much to move and all those things. Very scientifically designed cancer care I want to take.
Okay.
That will be my next part.
Oh, fantastic. And all the very best with that as well. Do you have any statistic about the growth of PCOS and cancer, especially in India?
Yeah, PCOS, as I told you, it was a theory question 30 years back. Now it is around 10 to 20% of population. 20% of female population all over the world suffers from PCOS. Huge, huge. Okay. And then cancer is doubled now. Before, cancers were more in men because 50% of men consume tobacco all over the world.
Okay.
Any form of tobacco. So tobacco is the main culprit for cancer in men. Oral cancers is a leading. Whereas in women, breast cancer is the highest cancer. Now, next is the cervical cancer. Now it is increasing. And endometrial cancer, uterus cancer was there when we were studying around 50, 60, 70 years. Now it is coming to 30 years, 35 years, breast cancer, 25 years, unmarried girls, breast lump cancer. Even, it is driving us crazy. The increased number of cases and the pattern, then it is coming for earlier people. There is something wrong with the lifestyle, what we are doing now. There are again modifiable factors, non-modifiable factors. What non-modifiable is your genetics. If your mother has got a cancer, you are at more risk of cancer. If you have family history, there is a colon cancer, that is understood. But modifiable is avoiding smoking, avoiding alcohol, avoiding the environmental toxins like cosmetics, plastics, too much of dust and pollution, following a good lifestyle. Obesity is a very, very major problem. Excess of fat can pose more risk for developing cancer also. So all these are modifiable factors. Getting married early, breastfeeding the baby, very, very important for breast cancer. If you breastfeed the baby for 1.5 years, your risk of cancer, developing breast cancer reduces by 7%. Breastfeed 2 years, reduces still. 2 babies, it reduces. But unfortunately, women are very career oriented. That will become a 1 hour topic again. So they are getting married late and they are not breastfeeding. They are very busy. So breast cancer is increasing.
At one point in time, you talked about nature providing this protection for women
Yes.
as long as they are fertile. And
Yes.
Can you talk about it? That was a very interesting thing.
Absolutely. So it is very disappointing to all the men in this room, in this studio. Nature favors women. There are 100 eggs and sperms, they united to become a baby. Only 20 will live up to a baby. Okay. So almost 80% will go in the process. Before the pregnancy test is positive, only so many abortions happen because they don't sustain. And they have found out that in the babies which die or which go away during the process, males are more. The nature selects female babies. Female babies, the nature select. The selection starts from there. Okay, and then there is this menstruation. There is a periods, what we call as periods. Once the period starts to 13, 14-year-old girls, they start producing a hormone called estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen in the first half of cycle, progesterone in the second half of cycle. Till they become menopause. And it's still around 45, 50 years. Now, till these many years, because of these two hormones, which are well balanced, the women getting BP, sugar, high cholesterol, liver disease comes down.
Oh, okay.
So in all the households, there are more ajis. The tatas go away fast. That's because women live longer because of this window, 13 years till 50 years, they're protected by these hormones. And once they become menopause, that advantage is taken away. And by the time they reach 60, compare a 30-year-old man and a 30-year-old woman. Woman is always healthier compared to man. The nature is selecting because they are the ones who carry the babies. They are the ones who are important for progeny protection.
Yep.
So that is why nature selects and favors women. And once that is over, the woman's fertile period is over, and she's 50, by 60, both are same. So you can see a lot of women who are around menopause or after menopause, they start putting on weight and they become diabetic and hypertensive and cholesterol, heart attacks start later. Women having a heart attack start later.
Okay.
But unfortunately, this last 5 to 10 years, women are losing it because they are fat, they are not eating right, their lifestyle is not good, okay, and then they are having all the bad habits, okay, and they're not getting married in time, not having babies in time. They are losing that advantage of the nature, what nature has given us. So that is how the PCOS that is a very typical example for a loss of advantage.
Oh.
The girls are becoming like boys. In PCOS, the women have male hormones. The testosterone hormones become high. So they become like men. So literally they become like men. In the quest of being feminism and becoming like men, they literally become like men in PCOS. So that is why all the diseases which are there in men, like BP, sugar, cholesterol, is increased in women with PCOS.
So when I say you women, you're throwing away the advantage that the nature is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you talked about two things, yoga and eating disorder. How would these two components decrease the chances of getting PCOS or cancer? Is there a correlation scientifically?
Absolutely. See, obesity, particularly the fat around the abdomen or the tummy fat is a bad fat. If you notice, women put on weight in the hips, men put on weight in the tummies. Men have tummies. Nowadays, women also have tummies. The fat around the tummy is a bad fat. It's a metabolically active fat. That is the one which converts to estrogen and progesterone and testosterone and cause a lot of problems in the body. Bad cholesterol. So, doing yoga and eating well and sleeping well, sleep. Very, very neglected topic is sleep. All of us are not sleeping properly. Sleeping in time, there is something called sleep hygiene. We need to sleep correct time, right time. Sleep early to bed, early to rise. That's not happening. And too much of screen time. All these are making people very depressed. Depression also is more prone to develop heart disease and cancer.
What would yoga do to decrease the chance?
So they see yoga is beautiful in the sense it will address the mental part of it, mental health part of it, and also the physical part of it. So apart from the regular exercise, what we do in gym, that is you lose calories and you build your muscles. Yoga also does that. Along with that, the pranayama and the meditation will help control the mental health. Very, very important. Mental health is gone for us. Now it has become a fad to say, I'm taking therapy. Therapy is very common.
So would your solution also include yoga?
Yes.
So it's a holistic program.
Yes, absolutely. Because my Sakriya health program has a yoga guru. There are two ladies who are practicing yoga. They teach yoga. One-to-one yoga will be there. We address the mental health. Here in this Sakriya, there is nothing like there is a common diet and common exercise and common yoga for everyone. Everything is tailor-made. Everything is person-specific.
Okay.
So I'm the one who will decide who gets how much of what kind of a therapy or a yoga or exercise or a diet, because I would have assessed, we assess with a lot of screening questions. We observe them, their food diary, their habits, sleep, everything, and then we assign. It's like a protocol or a tailor-made program for individuals.
So it's like personalized medicine.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Fantastic. Extremely happy to have you here. And if you want to say any message to the society, please feel free to do so.
Yeah, I think a message will be too philosophical. So I feel every day is a good day and we need to get up every day with a lot of gratitude. Gratitude is the most important emotion to keep us going in life. So that way I should thank all of you for calling me here and talking to me and, being nice to me. So everything is, the moment we start thanking for everything, for even for a good food, good coffee, good tea, water, simple things. Life becomes very, very easy. Good friends, everything.
Okay.
It's very easy. Life is very easy.
Fantastic. Dr. Chandrika, thank you so much for taking out the time and coming here and talking very candidly. Thanks a ton.
Thank you so much. It is so different from so many of the podcasts what I have done. It was a very, very, I think you are very smart that, you threw away a lot of candid questions and very different questions too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thanks a ton.